Hey guys, I am going to show you, I'll give you a little quick tutorial about how to make the mask covers, the N95 mask covers today. If you're on our volunteer list, we sent some instructions, but they can be a little bit confusing, and I think they're designed for making them in a group and people doing different steps, but I just wanted to show you how quick it is just to make one on your own. Really simple. If you hear a baby crying in the background, don't worry. We're just taking care of the baby too. Okay, so this is a finished one. This one's kind of funny. It's little tractor fabric. It's what I have. I usually make things for children, but this is some scrap fabric I had, and so I'm just going to show you how to get started. Okay. All you need is your pattern. You can print this, and if you already, if you can print it yourself, that's great. If you're in Fitzgerald, we sent you information, hopefully, about you can go pick up a pattern from the hospital. You just give Holly Lee a call, and she'll bring it out to you. And we printed ours on cardstock so that instead of pinning a pattern to the fabric and cutting around it, the easiest thing to do when you're making a lot of something is to just trace the pattern with a marker. You can use a washable marker, you can use a Sharpie, pencil, whatever you have. I like to use a Sharpie, and you can do a lot of layers at a time, however many you feel like you can cut. But for each mask, you need 2 thicknesses, and then you need to trace the pattern twice, or you could do 4 thicknesses. But I have cut my pattern out, and I cut all the dots and notches. I just cut a little notch into my pattern so that when I'm tracing it, I'm just going to trace all the way around both sides. Oops, I'm not doing a very good job. I'm going to trace it twice, but when I'm tracing it, I trace all the way around it, but then you want to, I just put a little dot where those notches are, and where the, I've cut a notch out of my pattern so that I can use my pen to make a mark inside of each of those notches. That's going to tell us where to put the elastic and help us when we're lining up our pieces later to sew them together. So I'm going to cut another one really quick. So trace another one rather. And I'm going to mark my notches. Okay, and then I'm going to, since you traced them, you don't have any pins in it, this is just a little quicker. Then you can put a pin in it and cut around it. However many pins you want to, however many thicknesses you want to do, depending on how many you're making, or if you want to do one at a time, that's great too. Okay, once you have your pieces cut out, then we're going to add the elastic in. You have 2 halves to your mask, because you'll see you have the seam down the middle, and look, the inside seam, we're just going to finish that with a zigzag, so you can kind of be thinking about how we're putting these together. One thing that might be helpful is, instead of marking that center seam with notches, it's pretty easy once you get started to match everything up. So if you just dot the elastic dots, or if you use a different symbol, it helps you when you have your pieces later to remember where you're supposed to put your elastic. So you need 2 pieces of elastic. Dave, would you get me some elastic from you need 2 pieces of elastic, and what you're going to do is you're going to, if you have right sides and wrong sides to your fabric, you're going to put them right sides together. Thank you. And then you're going to take your elastic, and you don't want it twisted, so go ahead and flatten it out, and I hold it flat. I sandwich it in between my 2 sides, and then I slide the ends to where those little dots are. And so that way you don't have to worry about it getting twisted up inside if you did one at a time. So you just slide it out, and then you pin it. So you've got 2 sections. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. And this is a 9.5-inch piece of elastic, I think. And you're sandwiching it inside, in between those two layers. Make sure it's not twisted. Putting it inside because we're going to sew this right sides together and then flip it out. So I'm just laying it in between my two pieces. And then moving the ends to where my dots are. And pinning, oops, caught my tablecloth. Pinning those in place. Just like that. Okay, and then we're going to sew that elastic in. And I know some people were having a little bit of trouble with making sure their pattern was exactly the right size, but you can adjust the pattern. It actually is a good bit bigger than the N95 mask. I've got one over here. Let's see. They gave me one to check my pattern with from the hospital. We're borrowing this one so we can see. And you can see it fits in there really well. So you've got a little bit of leeway with your pattern. See how much bigger it is? So we're okay. Like, don't worry about it being too small. Mine printed off a little bit too small, but it still works just fine. You can see that. Sorry about the baby. And, okay, so I'm going to sew mine, and I'm going to use the presser foot as my seam allowance. And you can use up to, you can use 5/8. I think mine is closer to a half. And don't worry about back stitching over that elastic because we're going to top stitch it after we flip it. And that is going to give it a little bit of extra stability. Okay, so, and you don't even really have to worry about back stitching these ends because they're going to get sewn together. And stitching around this really quickly. These come together pretty fast, especially once you've made one. And what I would do for efficiency is to cut all your pieces, then do the neck, put the elastic in all the pieces, like do the same step over and over and over again to each mask. Okay, so now you have this seam sewn. So what we're going to do now is fold it inside out. And there's your elastic inside. Do the other one. Elastic is in there just right. And then what I do is I kind of push that seam open, and depending on your fabric, you may have to iron that. You can use any kind of fabric. Cotton is best, 100% cotton, but you can use anything. It doesn't have to be solid. It doesn't have to be a certain pattern or anything. We're just trying to be resourceful and use what we have. In fact, it would be better for you to use something that you already have at your house than going out to the store, so we can try and keep everybody at home. Okay, mine didn't really need to be ironed, but sometimes you may need to iron it to shape it. But then when you get it flipped and lined up and straightened, you want to top stitch it. That's going to keep everything in place because these are going to be laundered over and over. And it also is going to get your, make sure your elastic is really sturdy in there. Okay, so I'm going to just top stitch. And when I top stitch them, I do it a little bit closer to the edge than you would if you were sewing a seam. You want to top stitch about 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch close to the edge. Okay, I'm just going to run this one. Whoops. Sometimes the sewing machine gets a little caught. Okay, perfect. So now I've got my pieces top stitched, the elastic secure, and we're on to the two final steps. So now you have two kind of moon-shaped pieces. You want to put those right sides together. Mine doesn't have a right and a wrong side. And you're going to, those should line up pretty well. Make sure you've got your tops and bottoms together here. Right, so I'm just going to line that up. Yes, that's right. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to match the edges, because that's going to make, see how that's a little bit different on both sides? I'm going to just match the edges. And then if there's any like slack or anything in here, you just want to sort of ease it in and make those pieces match as best you can. But don't be too worried about it. We don't want there to be any holes or gaps or anything like that. But it also doesn't have to look amazing. You know, it's more functional than anything. So here you're going to take, you can take a 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch seam allowance here. And you want to back stitch really good on this step. Back stitch, tack it down really well, because this is what's kind of holding everything together, and we want them to be really durable for the wash so that they can be reused over and over. Okay, so I back stitched really well, cutting off my extra seams. In the very last step, if there's any like, if it's way off or you have a lot of extra fabric here, trim it. But then you want to, if you can, you have 2 options here. You could either use your pinking shears and pink it, but the best thing would be to zigzag stitch over the edges, these raw edges, because we don't want to go to the trouble to finish this, because really we want to get a big quantity of mass. They don't have to look amazing, you know, but we want these edges to not fray. So the easiest, most effective way to do that is just for us to, and I just ran out of thread, but you'll get the point, is to zigzag stitch or use your pinking shears, okay? So you would do that all the way around, and then you flip it right side out, and your mask is done. And trim all of your edges, and then just do a really quick glance over the whole thing to make sure that you everything's together and good. And I think my timer is running out, but let me know if you have any questions, and I hope this helps to make the N95 mask covers. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you.